Welcome to video number 2 on questions with how. So let's start with a common question with how. How often? Example A, how often do you go shopping? How often is asking about frequency, right? Do you go shopping every day, once a week, twice a week, every other day or so, 3 times a month? So how often do you do something? We could also be more specific and ask how many times. So in example B, we're asked how many times a day do you eat? So not just how often do you eat, but in one day, how many times in that one day do you eat? So you eat 3 or 4 times a day. How many times a week do you go shopping? How many times a month do you go to the post office? How many times a year do you take a vacation? So we're asking about the frequency within that time period, a day, a week, a month, or a year. How many times? And then you specify your time period, a day, a week, a month, a year, and then you ask your question. Okay. To answer how often or how many times, you have all these frequency expressions, a lot, occasionally, once in a while, not very often, never, every day, every other day, twice a month, 3 times a year. Okay, we have all different kinds of ways to express frequency. Let's practice making some questions with how often. Okay, so here we have a few questions using how often or how many times. You have the verb, the subject, and the expression, how many times or how often. Go ahead, pause the video now. Try to form these questions in the correct grammatical order. And then when you're finished, restart the video to check your answers. Okay, so we have how, go, many times a year he, how often you visit, how many times a day he call, how many times a month work out he, how you often wear a suit, how she many times a week eat out. Good luck. Okay, I assume that you tried to make these questions, and now let's check your answers. See how many you got right. Okay, the first one, how many times a year does he go there? How often do you visit them? How many times a day does he call? How many times a month does he work out? How often do you wear a suit? And how many times a week does she eat out? Okay. You are forming a question, so you still need a do or does or did helping verb before the subject. How many of these questions did you get right? All of them, right? Good job. Now let's look at another common question. How far? How far is asking about distance. Okay? In English, when we want to describe the distance, we use this phrase, it is. Okay? Example A, it is 489 miles from Oslo to Helsinki. Okay? Or B, we can see it is 3,605 miles from Moscow to Beijing. We could also say from Beijing to Moscow, to Beijing from Moscow, to Moscow from Beijing. Okay? Generally, when you're speaking, where you start and where you end will depend on where you are. So if we were in Moscow and I was asking how far is it to Beijing, so I would ask how far is it from Moscow to Beijing, or how far is it to Beijing from Moscow, because we're in Moscow. If we were in Beijing, I might ask how far is it from Beijing to Moscow. Okay? But if we're not in Beijing and we're not in Moscow, then you have your choice. Any one of these four statements would be the same. Okay, so we can see the formula here. It is, and then there's a distance here, miles, kilometers, meters, from or to some place and to from the other place. Okay. So the question, we're asking a question, how far? We're going to reverse that it is, and just like any other question, it'll become is it? How far is it from Mumbai to Delhi? Okay. How far is it? It is 725 miles from Mumbai to Delhi. We can also ask other questions with how far, like how far do you live from school? Okay. How far do you walk to school? How far do you live from work? Okay. And so there's all kinds of questions you can ask about distance. Okay. And then if we wanted to be more specific, just like in how often, we saw that we can ask how often, and then you can ask how many times to be more specific here. Instead of asking how far, we could be more specific and ask for specific measurements. Okay, so how far becomes how many miles, or how many kilometers, or how many blocks. So here I'm letting the person, whoever I'm asking, know, please give me the distance in miles. How many miles is it from London to Paris? Or if you don't know miles, you use a metric system, you want kilometers. How many kilometers is it from Montreal? Okay, let's try a little bit and do a little practice. Okay, so here we have 5 questions. We can see some are asking for how far, some are asking for blocks, kilometers, miles. Go ahead, pause the video now, write out your question, how you would write the question, how you would ask the question, and then when you're ready, restart the video to check your answers. Good luck. You ready? Let's check your answers. Number 1, okay. Australia, how far is it from one side of Australia to the other? Okay. Number 2, how far do you live from the beach? Remember, just like any other question, we need that helping verb do. Here we want blocks. How many blocks is it from the hospital to the bookstore? And here we want kilometers. How many kilometers is it? Okay, from Cape Town to Durban. And number 5, we are living in the US, so we want miles. How many miles do you commute every day? Okay, how many of these did you get right? All of them, you say? You are very smart. Now let's look at the question, how long? How far was talking about distance. How long, we're asking about time. In English, when we talk about the length of time, we will say it takes. Okay? It takes 20 minutes to cook rice. Or if it's past tense, it took 2 hours to dry. So we can see this formula here, it plus a form of the verb take plus an expression of time. And then we have the infinitive form for some action, to cook rice, to drive, to work. So if the expression is it takes or it took, then the question will be how long does it take to cook rice? Or past tense, how long did it take Al to drive to work? Okay, another past tense, how long did you study last night? And we can even go into the future, how long will you'd be in Hong Kong, 10 days. Okay. So when we ask how long does it take, or did it take, or will it take, we're asking for a length of time, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours, 10 days. Okay. And just as we saw in how often, when I can be more specific and say how many times, just like we saw in how far, I can be more specific and say how many miles or how many kilometers. Here, I can also be more specific. Instead of saying how long, I can say how many days. Okay, how many days will you be in Hong Kong? Or how many hours? How many weeks? How many months? How many minutes? So I can be more specific, not just ask how long, but I can ask for specifically minutes or hours or days or weeks. So let's practice with how long does it take? Okay, in this exercise, we have some questions where the word order is all jumbled up. And we have extra words that might not be used. So in the first one, let's do this together. We have the question, how long? And we're looking at by subway. Okay, so how long by subway? Well, it's a question. So the first thing we need is a helping verb. And I see my helping verb is does. How long does, okay, and then we have the it take. Okay, remember, we don't want takes with an S because the S is on the does. How long does it take? And then our infinitive phrase to get there. How long does it take to get there by subway? Try the next two on your own, pause the video, and then restart when you have your answers. Ready to check your answers? Okay, here we have a sentence, it in the morning. Okay, here we're going to do it, take or takes. If you said takes, you're correct. It takes. And then we want the time. How long? 3 minutes. Okay, it takes 3 minutes. Okay, then we have to fix her hair. And then we have Sydney. Uh-oh, that's not right. What should we do? Where does Sydney go? Yes, Sydney goes in the front. It takes Sydney 3 minutes to fix her hair. So we have the it takes in the person, how long, and then to do what. Right? So if we're going by this formula, it takes, okay, we don't have takes here, we're in past tense, took. And then instead of Sydney, we have me. Instead of 3 minutes, we have 6 hours. Instead of to fix her hair, it says to fly. It took me 6 hours to fly. Okay, we have a couple of more. Go ahead and stop the video, try these, and then check your answers. Good luck. Okay, welcome back. Let's check your answers. How long? Okay, we have a question, so we need that helping verb. And I see my helping verb here is did, so we're in the past tense. How long did it? Okay, we don't want took because we have the did. We want take. How long did it take who to do what? How long did it take the students to finish the exam? Okay. Here we have how. There's no long. I see many. How many years has Dr. Ross taught at the university? So here we have we're in present perfect. So the helping verb is has. Okay, did you get these right? I bet you did. Okay, so far we've looked at how often, how far, how long, asking about frequency, distance, and time. So now our last activity will be a little review. Number one, we're going to ask the question with how, and we want to know, is it how often, how far, or how long? So how is Rapid City from Springfield? And we have miles. It's a distance. The answer is how far. Look at the next four on your own and decide, is it how far, how long, or how often. Good luck. Finished? Okay, let's check your answers. So the next one, we have a does it take? And we're talking about hours. So that's how long. The next one, we have your office from here, a couple of blocks. That's distance, how far. The next one, do you go to your office on weekends at least once a month? That's frequency, how often. Are you going to stay at your office tonight? I'll leave around 8. That is time. So how long? Okay. Few more. Do number 6 through 10. Pause the video. And then when you're ready, restart to check your answers. You ready to check? Good. Okay. Number 6, we have twice a year as the answer. That's how often. Okay. Number 7, we have 2 weeks as the answer. That's a time. How long? Okay. Here we have from your house. Okay. Maybe 15 minutes. That's a time, but the answer is not far. Okay. So we're asking about distance. How far is the airport from your house? Please note that quite often, especially Americans, will answer the question, how far, with a time, okay? And they'll say by taxi, by car, on foot, by bus. You'll specify the transportation. But even though the answer is in minutes, we're asking for distance. How far? Not far. Number 9, once a year. How often do you see your games? And then number 10, are you going to be away from home? We'll be on vacation until the end of this month. How long are you going to be away from home? Okay, I'm sure you got these all right. If you have any questions about how often, how far, or how long, please leave the questions in the comments. Bye. Don't forget, there's still more questions with how. Check out video number 3, where we'll talk about more questions with how and how about. Bye.